Ladies, let's have an honest talk today. If you're a woman over 60, you've probably noticed your body doesn't feel quite the same anymore. Maybe your energy isn't steady like it used to be. Sleep feels lighter. Moods shift without warning. And for many women, hot flashes, night sweats, or sudden belly weight gain have become familiar struggles. Now, here's the truth. These changes are not simply part of aging. They're the result of hormone shifts inside your body. And while menopause plays a big role, what you eat every single day can push those imbalances further out of control or gently guide them back toward balance. In my practice, I meet so many women who believe they're stuck with fatigue, joint pain, brain fog, or restless nights. But once we look closely, it often turns out that everyday foods, things they never questioned, are quietly disrupting their hormones. And when we make simple changes, their symptoms ease and they start to feel like themselves again. That's why today's conversation matters. I want to show you 3 common foods that can harm your hormones after 60. More importantly, I want you to understand why these foods cause trouble, so you can take back control of your health. So let's begin, because once you see how powerful these small choices are, you'll never look at your plate the same way again. Let's begin with the first big culprit: processed foods and added sugars. Now, when I say processed foods, I don't mean just a slice of bread or a little canned soup. I'm talking about the highly processed packaged snacks and desserts that line our grocery store shelves. Cookies, cakes, sugary breakfast cereals, sweetened yogurts, soda, and even those so-called healthy granola bars. The problem with these foods is not only the sugar content, but the way they drive your hormones completely out of balance. Remember earlier when I said your hormones are like an orchestra? Well, sugar is like a kid who storms into the concert hall and starts banging on the drums nonstop. Everything else gets drowned out. Here's what happens in your body. Every time you eat something high in sugar, your blood sugar spikes. To handle that sugar, your pancreas releases insulin. Now, insulin is not just about blood sugar, it is also tightly connected to your sex hormones. When insulin levels are constantly high, it creates a chain reaction. Your body becomes more inflamed, your cells become resistant to insulin, and this pushes your estrogen levels to act in strange, unpredictable ways. For women in their 60s whose estrogen is already low and fragile, this can make symptoms like hot flashes, brain fog, and fatigue much worse. But it doesn't stop there. High sugar intake also increases cortisol, your stress hormone. Think about that for a second. You're already struggling to sleep, your mood is on edge, and now sugar is fueling cortisol, keeping your body in a constant state of fight or flight. That's why so many women tell me, "Doctor, I just don't sleep deeply anymore. I wake up at 2 a.m. and my mind is racing." Often, sugar is one of the hidden drivers. Let me share another story. A patient of mine, her name was Susan, age 65. She loved baking, and every evening she would treat herself to a slice of cake after dinner. She told herself it was harmless, just a small piece, but she also complained that she couldn't sleep through the night, she was gaining weight around her midsection, and her energy was gone. When I asked her to keep a food journal, we noticed that her nightly dessert was like clockwork. So we did a simple experiment. She replaced that cake with a bowl of berries and a handful of walnuts. Just that one swap. Within a month, she told me she was falling asleep faster, she had lost 3 pounds, and her afternoon slumps had disappeared.
That's the power sugar has over your hormones. Even if you think it's just a small treat, your body, especially after 60, responds much more dramatically than it did when you were younger. And I want to make something clear here. I'm not saying you can never enjoy something sweet again. Life is meant to be enjoyed. But what I am saying is this: when sweets become a daily habit, when processed snacks sneak into your pantry and become your comfort food, your hormones pay the price. You may notice joint stiffness in the morning, or your skin looking more aged than you expect, or you may even feel more anxious or irritable. And often it's not just aging, it's the inflammation from sugar working silently in the background. Another piece to this puzzle is something many women don't know. Processed foods often contain not only sugar, but also chemicals called endocrine disruptors. These are additives and preservatives that can mimic or interfere with your hormones. They confuse your body's natural signals. So, in a sense, every time you open a package of processed cookies or chips, you're not just feeding your hunger, you may actually be feeding chaos into your hormonal system. So, what can you do instead? The answer is simpler than you think. Your body thrives on whole, unprocessed foods, fresh fruits, vegetables, whole grains like oats or quinoa, lean proteins, and healthy fats like avocado or olive oil. These foods nourish your body without sending your hormones into panic mode. Let's go back to Susan for a moment. After she reduced her processed sugar intake, not only did she sleep better, but her hot flashes reduced. Why? Because stabilizing blood sugar stabilizes estrogen. When your insulin is calm, your estrogen can find a steadier baseline. That's why so many women notice that once they stop eating processed foods, the roller coaster of hot flashes and mood swings starts to calm down. I want you to remember this. Sugar is not just about weight. Sugar is about hormones. It is about inflammation. It is about the quality of your sleep, the sharpness of your mind, and the steadiness of your mood. So the first food to avoid if you're over 60 and care about your hormones is clear. Highly processed sugary foods. They are not innocent. They are not harmless. They are a daily assault on your delicate hormonal balance. And in a moment, we'll move into the second food, one that often surprises people because it's something many women think of as healthy. But when it's processed the wrong way, it can actually do the exact opposite and throw your hormones off track. Now let's talk about the second food. And this one might surprise you because for years it has been marketed as healthy, especially for women. I'm talking about soy products, but not the traditional soy you may think of. I'm talking about highly processed soy, the kind that shows up in powders, imitation meats, energy bars, soy-based snacks, and sometimes even in packaged breads or protein shakes. Here's why this matters so much. Soy contains compounds called phytoestrogens. These are plant-based molecules that look very similar to estrogen in the body. In some cases, phytoestrogens can act gently, offering a weak estrogen-like effect that may be beneficial. But the problem comes when soy is overprocessed, concentrated, and consumed in unnatural forms. At that point, it no longer acts as a gentle helper, it becomes a hormone disruptor. Let me explain. Your body's estrogen receptors are like locks, and estrogen itself is the key. When the right key fits, the lock opens and the right action happens, whether that's supporting your bones, protecting your brain, or balancing your mood. But when you eat large amounts of processed soy, these phytoestrogens can flood your system and start competing for those locks. Sometimes they fit, sometimes they don't. And when they don't fit perfectly, they block the lock from working properly. That means your natural estrogen, what little you still have after menopause, can't do its job. I had a patient named Carol, age 61. She was worried about her bones because her mother had osteoporosis. She started drinking 2 soy protein shakes every single day because she had read online that soy was good for women's health. But within 6 months, she was miserable. Her hot flashes had worsened, she felt bloated all the time, and she told me she felt foggy in her head. When we looked closely, we realized her diet was overloaded with processed soy powders and soy bars. Once we cut those out and focused on whole foods instead, her symptoms started to calm down. The important lesson here is that not all soy is bad. In fact, in traditional Asian diets, small amounts of naturally fermented soy like miso, tempeh, or a bit of tofu can be part of a balanced meal. The problem is the westernized, industrialized soy protein isolates, soy lecithin, soy fillers that are pumped into processed foods. Those are the ones that really confuse your hormone system. And here's another piece of the story. Many soy crops today are genetically modified and heavily sprayed with pesticides. These chemicals themselves can act as endocrine disruptors. So when you eat processed soy, you're not just getting the phytoestrogens, you're also potentially getting a dose of chemicals that further disturb your hormonal balance. For women over 60, this can be particularly harmful. Your natural estrogen levels are already low. Your body's trying to adapt to this new baseline. But when you add in fake estrogens from processed soy, you create mixed signals. Some tissues might get overstimulated, while others are left undersupported. That's why some women feel worse instead of better when they lean heavily on soy products. And the effects aren't always obvious at first. Sometimes it shows up subtly, as trouble sleeping, as mood swings, as changes in weight that don't make sense. Other times it can affect your thyroid because soy is known to interfere with thyroid hormone function in some people. For women already at risk for thyroid problems after menopause, this can add another layer of difficulty. So what's the takeaway? It's not that you can never touch soy again, it's about choosing the right kind and the right amount. If you enjoy a small portion of tofu and a stir fry or a bit of miso soup, that's very different from drinking a soy shake every day or eating processed soy snacks. The closer the soy is to its natural, traditional form, the safer it is for your hormones. Let's go back to Carol for a moment. After she switched from soy shakes to a balanced breakfast of eggs, vegetables, and a little fruit, her energy returned, her hot flashes eased. She told me she felt like a fog had lifted from her brain. And all we did was remove the overload of processed soy that was confusing her system. So I want you to remember this. Processed soy is not the same as natural soy. Don't be fooled by marketing. Just because something says heart healthy or good for women on the label doesn't mean it's good for your hormones. Especially after 60, your body needs clarity, not confusion. Now, we've talked about sugar and processed foods as the first big problem. We've talked about processed soy as the second. In a moment, I'm going to share the third food, one that I see causing more damage than almost anything else. And the reason is it's hidden in plain sight. Most women eat it without realizing. It tastes delicious, it's cheap, it's convenient, but inside your body, it acts like poison to your hormones.
Now, let's move into the third food. And honestly, this one breaks my heart because it's everywhere. It's cheap, it's convenient, it's hidden in restaurant meals and packaged snacks. And for women over 60, it is one of the most damaging things you can put into your body. I'm talking about trans fats and industrial oils, the kind you find in fried foods, margarine, baked goods, and even some of the buttery spreads that claim to be heart healthy. Let me explain what happens inside your body when you eat these fats. Unlike natural fats, like the kind you get from olive oil, nuts, or avocados, trans fats are artificially created. They are made in factories by forcing hydrogen into vegetable oils. The result is a fat that's solid at room temperature, cheap to produce, and has a long shelf life. That's why food companies love it. But your body does not love it at all. When you eat trans fats, your cells don't quite know what to do with them. They try to use them to build cell membranes, but because these fats are misshapen and unnatural, the membranes become stiff and dysfunctional. That means your cells can't communicate properly. And when your cells can't communicate, your hormones can't deliver their messages. Remember, hormones are messengers. They float through your bloodstream and knock on the door of a cell saying, hey, do this job. But if the door is built out of poor quality fat, the message doesn't get through. For women over 60, this is devastating. You already have lower estrogen and progesterone. The last thing you want to make your cells deaf to the little hormone signals you still have. But that's exactly what trans fats do. I had a patient named Margaret, age 64. She loved going out with her friends, and every Friday they would meet at a diner. She usually ordered fried chicken and fries, sometimes a slice of pie afterward. She told me she felt it was her little treat to end the week. But over time, she noticed her joints were aching, her belly weight was increasing, and her cholesterol numbers were climbing. When we dug deeper, it became clear she was getting a heavy dose of trans fats every week, sometimes multiple times a week. When she cut back on fried foods and started cooking at home with olive oil, her energy shifted. Within 2 months, she reported less stiffness in the morning, her blood tests improved, and she told me something that made me smile. "Doctor, I didn't realize food could make me feel this light again."
Now, here's the kicker. Trans fats don't just harm your heart and blood vessels. They also increase inflammation across your entire body. And inflammation is like fuel on the fire of hormone imbalance. It worsens hot flashes, it disrupts sleep, it interferes with insulin, and it even accelerates bone loss. Another hidden danger is industrial seed oils, things like soybean oil, corn oil, and canola oil. While they're not all technically trans fats, they are often highly refined, exposed to heat and chemicals, and they create oxidative stress in your body. That stress damages your cells, ages your skin, and puts even more strain on your already delicate hormonal system. I want you to think of it this way. Your hormones are like delicate instruments. You would never pour dirty oil into a violin or piano and expect it to sound beautiful. Yet every time you eat fried fast food, packaged cookies, or margarine, you're pouring dirty oil into the instrument of your body. The music goes off key. So, what's the solution? You don't have to give up fat. In fact, healthy fats are essential for hormone balance. But you need to choose the right ones. Extra virgin olive oil, avocado, walnuts, almonds, chia seeds, flax seeds. These provide the building blocks your body needs to make hormones and keep your cells receptive. Omega-3 fats, found in salmon or sardines, can actually calm inflammation and support brain health, which is so important as we age. Let's go back to Margaret. When she replaced her weekly fried meals with roasted vegetables, grilled salmon, and a drizzle of olive oil, not only did she feel better, but her friends started noticing too. They told her she looked brighter, more energized. Sometimes, when you remove the bad fats and replace them with good ones, the difference is visible, not just inside your body, but in your skin, your eyes, your posture. So the third food to avoid is clear: trans fats and industrial oils. They may be convenient, they may taste good in the moment, but they rob you of vitality, they stiffen your cells, and they silence your hormones. So, let's step back for a moment. We've talked about 3 foods that every woman over 60 should avoid if she wants to protect her hormones: sugary processed foods, processed soy, and trans fats. I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. Instead, I want you to feel empowered. Because the truth is, small changes make a huge difference. Swap the cake for berries and nuts. Choose miso soup instead of soy powder shakes. Use olive oil instead of margarine. These are not sacrifices. They are investments in your energy, your sleep, your mood, and your long-term health. And I'll leave you with this thought. Aging is inevitable, but suffering is not. You deserve to feel vibrant, balanced, and clear-headed at every stage of life. Don't let the wrong foods steal that from you. If this message resonated with you, please share it with a friend, a sister, or a mother who might need to hear it. And remember, subscribe to HealthHub so you never miss a chance to learn how to take back control of your health.